Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for another Next After webinar. Today, we're talking about a topic that is relevant to most every fundraiser, because I believe everybody sends an email at one point or another, and hopefully you're sending them often, but we'll talk more about that. But we're talking specifically about email subject lines today. And full disclosure, this webinar is just a tiny little preview into a workshop, a full-blown workshop. It's a certification workshop called Email Fundraising Optimization. So you're getting a little bit of a taste of what one of those workshops is like. But we're going to talk about 5 ways specifically to get more opens that will lead to donations. So that's what we're covering today. And Jon Powell is going to walk us through that. But before we get into all the details of that, there's a few things I want to cover. So first off is the NIO Summit, the NEO Summit. John, if you'd advance the slide, that would be great. The NEO Summit is coming up on September 24th and 25th in Denver, Colorado at the Ellie Calkins Opera House. It's a beautiful venue. It's a gorgeous venue. We're bringing in over 16 speakers from the for-profit industry, the nonprofit industry, people that we've really found are really innovative thinkers in fundraising and marketing that we think have some pretty cool ideas that you can apply to your fundraising to really see growth. So here's a little sample of some of the speakers that are going to be there talking about optimization, copywriting, content marketing, psychology, SEO, donor acquisition, and a whole lot more. So that's just a little sample. You can find out more. You can see sessions from previous years. You can see the full agenda, who's all speaking, all the different fun activities, network events, all at niosummit.com. So you can learn more and get your tickets there as well. But then one thing I want to call your attention to specifically is the day before the NIO Summit in Denver. We're doing this full-blown email fundraising optimization training. It's a certification level workshop. So it's on September 23rd. It's the Studio Loft in Denver, which is really connected to the same opera house where the summit will be. But through this workshop, you'll walk away with the certification afterwards, but it walks through every single aspect of your email fundraising. So we're talking about writing copy, we're talking about subject lines, preview text, sender names, design, how you construct a landing page to lead to donations. Every aspect of it we're going to cover. You can find out more about that at niosummit.com/workshop. So be sure to check that out as well. A couple little housekeeping things before we get going. The webinar today will be recorded, and we will be sending you a video recording afterwards. Probably send that out a little bit later this evening around 5 p.m. Central Time. In that, we'll include some links to the slide deck as well as a couple other featured resources that are mentioned today. But then all along the way, as always, we want you to ask questions. If John has a point that you don't quite understand or want to dig deeper into, feel free to use the chat window on the right side of your screen, or if you're on mobile, it should be right below the player. You can send your question in there. I'll be monitoring those as the whole event goes on, keeping track. And then at the very end, we'll come back. We'll have a Q&A time where John will answer all those questions. So without further ado, I want to hand things over to Jon Powell. He's our Senior Director of Research and Education, a total wizard at email fundraising, email marketing. Has really helped me kind of get this framework for understanding how do you write subject lines effectively, how do you write copy effectively to really get to the heart of a donor or who you're trying to reach. So John's got a lot of insight, and I'm going to hand it over to him.
All right, thanks, Nathan. Welcome everybody. We are here to talk about email subject lines. Specifically, I'm going to give you 5 ways to get more opens, which will lead to more clicks, which will lead to more donations. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Now, I just want to remind you that the email subject line is just one part of the envelope, okay? There's so many other ways in which you could influence somebody's decision to open, all right? But the subject line is just one really big way, and it's one thing that a lot of people look at first. It's not the one thing that everybody looks at first, but it's certainly up there. So you can't ignore it. It's a great opportunity, and it's one of the easiest things that you can test, okay? So we're going to take a look at what you can do right away in order to get started with that, okay? And I'd like to start this with a little bit of a story about myself. For those of you that know me and have heard me everywhere, you probably have heard the story about me and my corgi. I actually have a lot of stories about me and my corgi, but this one certainly is one of the most memorable. Is there any dog lovers here? Anybody on the line that actually loves dogs, has a dog? Usually there is. I don't know if you are familiar with corgis, but they certainly are cute. They're the queen's dog, right? But the challenge with corgis is that they could be incredibly stubborn. Okay, this is Baxter. When he's asking me to go outside, I put the leash on him and he's literally pulling back at me. And because I had experienced this so many times, you know how sometimes you get so annoyed with something that you decide that you want to like take a picture of it. Kids, dogs, you name it, right? Well, that was what was going on here. And I said, you know what, fine. I got down on the ground, I was like, all right, come on, boy, let's go outside. I know you want to go outside. And, using my best coercion techniques, right, that I have learned, and unfortunately, those coercion techniques led me to him laying down in place. So if I was going to get him to come outside, he's telling me that he's going to make me drag him, even though he's the one whining to me, okay, that he needs to go outside. And I'm just like, okay. So what would you do if you're in this situation? Dog's got to go outside, but dog doesn't want to go outside. But yet dog does want to go outside. Like, how do you solve this situation? Well, I did what just about any other parent does. I offered a treat, and I noticed I keep offering these treats and eventually start looking like this. Okay, let's just really beg, like, now I got a new problem I've got to solve, right? And have you ever experienced that in your fundraising where it's like, you're offering matches and this and that, whatever it takes, some kind of incentive, and it costs you money, and people are getting used to it, and now it's like people aren't even going to give unless you give them some incentive to give, right? Well, you're just like me. You kind of dug yourself into this problem. But is there another way? Well, let me tell you. I will tell you, there is another way for you to solve this problem. I actually solved this problem. I was able to figure out how to get him outside, right, without bribing him with treats. You want to know what it is? Well, I'm going to tell you at the end of the webinar. Okay. But the point is that it does have to relate to a little something that I dabbled into when I was a teenager. And I know this is the fun things that I like to read when I was a teenager, many moons ago. Okay. I guess one of my first favorite books, right? I don't know. I must have been a pretty troubled teen, right? Get anyone to do anything and never feel powerless again. I must not have been, feeling very successful in high school, but nevertheless, this whole idea that you could like manipulate and all of this psychological secrets, right? It was intriguing to me. But the good news is that there's nothing manipulative in this book. He's just a really good copywriter, right? But I did learn something very important out of this book, and out of many books like it. In fact, if you keep up with this world of the subliminal, like Cialdini, Ariely, all of the economy, like you get, there's this really massive, incredible insight, and that's this, is that we as human beings make a lot of decisions without even knowing it, right? In fact, let me tell you, if your brain doesn't know how to make these decisions on your behalf, right? You literally won't be able to function. You won't have your balance. You won't be able to walk. You won't be able to think because it literally doesn't know how to turn things off, okay? I know this firsthand. I experienced this for the last 7 months, okay? I'm pretty much almost better now, but like, I understand the brain's need for shortcuts, okay? That's why it can only consciously handle about 16 to 60 bits per second, because if it tried to handle everything else, it would literally shut down, right? But here's the problem, is that those shortcuts, those biases that help us also can hurt us if we're not careful, right? And what we're dealing with is we're dealing with a world of donors, of people on our lists that have these biases, that have these shortcuts, some related to the way in which they work, some related to the way in which they open and examine and triage their emails, right? And not because they don't like you or because they don't like people, just because that's how their brain has solved the problem. They may not actually see the email that you send them based off of what you put in your subject line, right? So, what do we do with this information? Well, in today's webinar, you're going to get a sense of how you could learn about this phenomenon and how you can kind of use that knowledge to your advantage so that you will have a fair chance of being heard. Not manipulating, but a fair chance, okay? Because that's really what it's about. It's about getting past some of those subliminal shortcuts that your brain has created in order to get through the day, right? So that you will actually have a chance of being heard, right? Now, knowing this, in all of the years that I've been doing subject lines, I spent 10 years in the for-profit world, doing this kind of testing, right? And then the last 2.5 years just in the not-for-profit world exclusively, just trying to figure this stuff out for you guys. And what I discovered is that in both realms, for-profit, not-for-profit, there are generally two ways in which to improve a subject line, right? Because the idea is you want to leave an impression on somebody, you want to excite them, you want to kind of get past some of those subliminal shortcuts, right? So that they would, give your email subject line a chance. Well, here's the first way, okay? I call it appealing to the topic angle. And the best way for me to define it is this. So there's Tim. As you can see, I guess Tim photoshopped on, the Back to Future guy. I didn't do it, I just found it. Imagine Tim saying this to me. Tim's our leader. He's our CEO and founder. Hey, Jon, it's Tim. He's leaving me a voicemail. Okay. Imagine I'm listening, I'm listening to my phone, right? And he's like, hey, Jon, it's Tim. I have a question about taxes and enrollment. Can you call me back? And that's literally like the message, right? What do you guys think? Is that, should I call him back right away? Well, I don't know. I mean, it doesn't really seem that important, right? I mean, maybe I've got some other things to do. Oh, I got to prep for this webinar, or I've got to do this, or I've got to do that, right? I mean, we kind of just make a decision and move on, right? Have you ever done that where you're like, okay, well, I think I could deal with that in a little bit. I can deal with that later. How do I get somebody to then respond right away though? Well, he might change it to something like this. Hey, Jon, it's Tim, right? I'm listening. I have a question about your paycheck and health insurance. Can you call me back ASAP so I can get everything to you on time? Do you think I'm going to call him back right away? You bet. Because nobody wants to go without a paycheck. Everybody wants to make sure they got their health insurance going, right? Like, especially me, like I got like a sick family, right? Between my wife and me and my daughter, we've got like 10 doctors, okay? So it's like, you know what I mean? Like, that's going to get my attention. But the problem with that, even though it's extremely powerful, the problem is that you have to figure out, or Tim or whoever, you have to figure out for your audience the most relevant, urgent, and important angle, right? Because any particular topic could maybe have 5 different angles. So which one is the most relevant, important, and urgent one for your audience? And whenever we go through this exercise, even when I go through this exercise, sometimes I just feel like this. I'm like, I don't know, like which one? And then it becomes the one that somebody in your organization likes the most, right? Well, listen, I'm here to teach you the other way of doing that. That's related to all of this stuff that I've been, I guess, obsessed about since I was a teenager, right? That's what I want to share with you today, right? A second way. You don't have to be an amazing writer. You don't have to be extremely knowledgeable about a topic, right? And that's one of the challenges with the first way, even though it's extremely powerful and it works. Don't get me wrong, it works. You got to know something about the topic. I mean, you got to know what all the different angles could be. But in this method, you don't have any of that. This is something you can do lightning fast. This is something that you can pull out of your back pocket. You're like, oh my gosh, I don't have time to write a bunch of subject lines. I just got to get something that I know people will open and I got to move on to the next thing. That's what this method's about, okay? And I call it appealing to the conversation, okay? Doesn't make sense yet. So let me explain it again with the voicemail, right? It's the voicemail method. So imagine it's Tim again, remember? This is Tim. Imagine, Tim, imagine I'm on the voicemail and, Tim is like, I'm pushing on, I'm listening. He's like, hey, Jon, it's Tim. I got a question about taxes and enrollment. We already discussed that might be a little boring. Or I might say, you know what? I think I can answer that later. And then I might forget to call him back, right? Now, what if he said this? Check out your screen in the red. Hey, Jon, it's Tim. I have an important question I need to ask you. Can you call me back? Click. How different does that feel? Makes me kind of, what could that question be about? Could it be about my paycheck? Am I in trouble? Did that thing that I just sent to him, does he like it? Does he not like it? Like, do you see what that does and how it gets my attention differently than the other method? And do you see that you don't really have to know a lot about the topic in order to do it? I mean, look, we actually took the topic out, right? That's called appealing. In my definition, I call that appealing to the conversation, mean the potential for that conversation to be meaningful to the donor or to whoever the intended recipient is. The potential, the expectation, right? That voicemail creates an expectation that there's something important on the other side, or something interesting, or something that my brain like aligns with, okay? And that's really what we're talking about here. It's about trying to line up what you're saying with the brain and all of its shortcuts and all of its things that it uses to keep you walking, keep you balanced, and all of that. It's about aligning those things up, okay? So that it will stop and it will want to read what you have to say. It will want to stop and consider you, right? It's going to give you a fair shot. How do we come up with this? Well, as you know, at Next After, we've got like, I don't know what, right now it's like 1,500 some experiments. The team is like super awesome in adding experiments daily, right? To the library. What's also awesome is we've got a lot of other organizations that just contribute to it as well. So it's not just people that work for Next After, it's people that have been trained by Next After, and organizations that, need a place to log their tests. Like, it's awesome. I love it. It's like one of the best times to be researching in nonprofit experiments with, some of the tools that we have. So in examining all the different subject line tests that exist in that library, from those experiments that our team has contributed to experiments that other organizations themselves, to our students, after looking at all of those things, looking at those tests that are statistically significant, so those who have a low chance of being wrong in their result, what we've uncovered is that five key levers that help, that the brain kind of is automatically drawn to, that you can leverage, that you can use to get somebody to stop and consider your fundraising email. And then not even a fundraising email. It could be a nurturing email. It could be an email to your coworker. Like, this is how applicable what you're about to learn is. And for some odd reason, our team, they just had kind of an instinct for this. And now they have a vocabulary, and they're recently, in the last 6 to 12 months, they've been proving this right. So without further ado, I'd like to get into the first of the five. You ready? And the first of the five is mystery. Okay. And by the way, when you're going through this, you're like, okay, this doesn't sound interesting to me, but listen, you need to understand how it's applied. And I'm going to show you real life examples from the library. Okay. The first one is mystery. Now, why does mystery matter? Well, any of you watched the show, Unsolved Mysteries? Man, that was, my wife and I both, we get freaked out when we hear that song. We're like, like, we grew up with this show, right? Humans love mystery. It's a brain thing. Our brains are biased and wired for mystery, right? It loves it. And whenever there's a mystery and it's positioned in just the right way, it's irresistible. Okay, it's irresistible to us. I mean, we can't help it. All right. So how can I use mystery, or how has mystery been used successfully to draw people into not-for-profit specific emails? Let me show you. Love this one. Version A or version B? Which one do you think attracted more total opens? Okay, because people are going to be opening no matter what. They've got a high enough motivation. But total, version A or version B? Well, if you answered version B, you were correct, right? I guess nobody wants to study the Gospel of John, right? You know what I mean? They'll take a special gift, but they don't want to study the Gospel of John, right? A little bit of mystery, okay? Well, let's show you another example. Okay, here's one that was submitted by an organization into the library. Mike Huckabee hosts an LI is like a short form abbreviated version for the organization name. LI's own, so I guess that's Leadership Institute. Version B, students freeze up when they hear this. Which one do you think got the most? Well, it was version B. I guess nobody wants to learn or hear about Mike Huckabee either. You know, right? Okay, let's keep going. Some more examples. I've added a little anonymization here so that you can get the point. Version A, churches are forced to fund. So this is more on the religious sector, it looks like. Churches forced to fund, and then it's on a specific topic that is important, right? That they think is important. And then I can't even imagine, ... What's the result? Well, 8% more on the right, okay? Again, it's not that the version A is trash. It's that version A didn't quite capture nearly as many as version B. Like there are some people who are like, click, delete, or pass, right? And they forget, right? So you see what I'm saying? It's like you're picking up leftover money or leftover attention on the table. Another one, your next course is ready, or a new course for you, American Heritage. I think you know the answer to this one. It's version A, right? Nobody wants to learn about American Heritage. And these are going to Americans. It's not that nobody wants to learn about it. It's just that, once you see what something is about, your brain automatically can decide and triage and put it away for later and then forget. Okay? Like, that's the reality. It's not that people hate you. It's not that people don't like you. It's that they forget. I mean, this happens with donations all the time. So by using mystery, okay, you're able to get them to stay focused right then and there and give your message a fair chance. They'll actually get in your email, right? And they may more likely be to click because of that. There are some experiments you're going to see where not only did it impact opens statistically, but also clicks in some cases even farther. Okay. So to activate history, you got to leave just enough out. Okay. Just enough out of the subject line concerning the topic. But you got to be careful. It can't be too much. All right. Does that make sense? Let's move on to number 2. Okay. Utility. This one is not as easy to understand. So we're going to spend a couple more examples and a little bit more time so you can get it. Okay. This is the second of the 5 key levers. All right. And let me help you understand with a little bit of a question. I get asked, do people always come to email because they have to? There are some people that believe that they only go into email because they have to. Well, I don't know about you, but I like to escape to email, right? I like to escape to email. Like, I don't smoke. You can see that I drink my tea. Like, going and making a tea takes like 5 minutes. Like, that's an escape for me, right? If my brain needs a break. Email, right? The email is just as much of an escape for me, right? As taking a tea break, as, for somebody that likes to take a smoke break or whatever it is that they like to do to give their brains a break or to give their brains a little shot, and I will take it a step further, right? I will even take it a step further and call it a stimulant. Okay. There's caffeine in this tea. Okay. Smoking actually, nicotine is actually a stimulant. There's a lot of people that quit smoking that actually find out they have ADHD because now they've lost their stimulant that they would normally be taking, right? Well, when you find something that you like in email, something that's like a boost, something that gives you a quick win, it's like that like button in Facebook. It's a dopamine hit, right? And you're thinking, well, why would anybody want to escape to email? Well, hopefully, it's not you escaping to your email right now. Hopefully you're not bored. People escape looking for that quick win. They're looking for that dopamine hit. They're looking for that, they're just looking for a little bit of stimulation, right? It's maybe they're working on a long project. Maybe it's just this conversation keeps going on. They're just like, gosh, I gotta escape. I look down at the email, right? They're looking for a quick win. Their brain is biased to that. Like their brain is looking for a quick hit, okay? Right? That's what they're looking for. So what you have is an opportunity to let them know that your email has one of those quick hits, that your email has one of those quick stimulants, that little bit of caffeine or that little bit of dopamine. That's why people are totally on the Facebook and the Instagram all the time. It's because they're looking for that dopamine hit. So how do we use this to write better subject lines? Again, we learned something about the brain. And how do we use that to help you get a fair chance? Let me show you some examples. Take a look. You got three examples. 1, 2, 3. Okay. You've got, it's not a duty, it's privilege. It's Greg Laurie, before it's too late, and I want to help you. Which one do you think has the most implied utility or benefit or like dopamine or like quick win for somebody? Is it number 1, number 2, number 3? I mean, A, B, or C? For those of you that kind of answered C, you're correct, right? Version B obviously did better than A. It's had a little bit more of an urgency, but version C completely, outperformed it, right? Because I want to help you implies that this email is about me, the donor, or me, the follower. It's like I perceive that I'm going to get something out of this, okay? Whereas with A, I perceive that you're going to get something out of this, company, right? Do you see what I'm saying? It's the difference between what I perceive. Another example, stay informed about your breast health thing. This is a National Breast Cancer Foundation versus a new early detection guide. Now, people could perceive from both of these that they're going to get something, right? But if you look, which one feels more tangible? Which one is more perceived utility? Well, if you answer version B, you're correct. So naturally, version B was able to attract a little bit more than version A, okay? Even though this is the same offer, it's the same guide, okay? Here's another one. A unique opportunity or a different kind of camp. Which one of these two implies more so than the other that there is something in it for the potential donor or the person on the list? If you answered version A, you're correct, okay? Again, it's the same exact email, same preview text, same sender, okay? But people that looked at that subject line first might have just prematurely dismissed it because they didn't perceive that utility. What's in it for them, okay? Here, it's a unique opportunity. It's an opportunity. What's that? See how there's a little bit of mystery in there too, okay? Another one, 3 reasons to give a life-changing gift, or why do you give Christmas gifts? I bring this one in because I need you to understand that sometimes utility comes in the form of engagement. Like somebody wants my opinion, or somebody is engaging me with a question, like they want to know about me. I mean, have you ever noticed that, like, if you're really bored, but then somebody starts asking you about you and the things that you like and the things that you prefer, like all of a sudden your brain just kind of like then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I'm not bored anymore, right? Your brain's biased to that. I mean, it needs it. It's like wanting that quick hit. It's hungry for it. 3 reasons to give a life-changing gift. I mean, that seems like it could be a sermon, right? No wonder it was an 84% increase in clicks, not just opens, okay? It made a difference all the way down. And the email was exactly the same. But do you guys perceive how the utility is even in version B more so than A? And here's another one. Offering life and hope. And do you like superheroes? You know what's funny about this? I think people like superheroes more than they like life and hope. I mean, see, it's about the quick hit. It's about that utility, right? So here's another one. I call this anti-utility. I told you I'd spend just a little bit more time on this one. There's only just 2 more examples and that's it. Will you help me share some love? Okay, you're asking me to do some work versus 720 women. Listen, 720 women outperformed the other one, not because it was an amazing subject line. It was because maybe people thought that they had to do some work when they were looking at version A. Just saying. Hashtag just saying, right? One more, okay? And I added a little bit of anonymization. Hope you laugh. A little Larry Bird, okay? Teaching the specific topic in Washington versus help teach policymakers this specific topic. Which one seems like more work for me? Well, I didn't come to email to do more work. I came for an escape, dude. Well, it wasn't that bad, but there are at least 5% difference, okay? There's some people that were like, oh man, work, right? Do you see the opportunity? Do you see the opportunity here when it comes to utility? It's about helping them to perceive something for them, like a dopamine hit, right? And for those of you, I won't spend more than 30 seconds on this. For those of you that are like, don't think there's any benefit to asking them for money, I just want you to remember that what people want oftentimes more than anything other than, once they are fed they have shelter and all of that stuff. They want to feel important. And you as an organization have the opportunity to help them feel important, okay? Just think about that one subject line where it said a unique opportunity. That's all it said, and it outperformed that one about the camp. So my point to you is that even if you're asking for money, even if you're using this for a fundraising email, it still can help, and it's still genuine. It's not a bait and switch, okay? All right, so if you're gonna activate it, you just gotta imply that there's something in it for them. You know, and you don't have to go into detail. You just gotta give them the impression. Impression is the key word, impression. Okay, let's do it. Number 3. I call this the lever of you. This doesn't make any sense at all until I explain it, okay? But let me explain it now, okay? Which one of these two do you think is more likely to get opened? Envelopes, don't look at the letter, just the envelope, right? Which one? For those of you that answered the handwritten looking one, that could have been a machine, right? I've seen those machines automatically, right? Okay, they exist. The one that looks handwritten, of course, is going to be more likely opened and stopped at. I mean, I want you to think of subject lines like how people sort through mail, right? They sort through mail and they're looking for the mail that they're going to put to the side and then trash or read later. And they're looking for the mail that they feel like they're going to read now. Okay, and you know, there's some sneaky stuff that people are doing nowadays, but what they're doing is they're trying to get in front of you. Well, in the same way, we are biased as humans to pay more attention right now to things that look like they're addressed to us, like personally addressed, like it was made for us. That's the key word, made for us, right? So how do you get that feeling? How do you achieve that in the subject line? Well, what I found is that you can achieve that if you find a natural way, not forced, okay, but a natural way to add the word you. Let me show you some examples. Okay, here's one. 1 of 16. Isaac has a message for you. Now, there's not as much perceived benefit in version B, right? But still, does it feel like it was made for me? Yeah, definitely. All right, that 108% increase in clicks. And you know, it's funny about this. I see this when I think of 1 of 16. I think of like the board, right? 7 of 9, tertiary adjective, unimatrix 1, right? Okay, but when I think version B, I'm like, I stop. And then I look at other things like the sender and the preview text, right? It stops me. It gives the email a chance. Okay, if you want to learn how all of those elements work together, well, you know, that workshop will teach how everything works together. But the subject line gave it a chance. It gave the envelope a chance. Does that make sense? Okay. Here's another one. We recorded this for you versus what real, and I anonymized it, what real, say, superheroes look like, or what real victory looks like. You know, you can just kind of substitute that, right? That was the context, right? Well, guess what? 14% more opens, meaning everybody, like the same amount of people that opened version B and then plus some by making it feel, and you know, there's not as much utility implied in this as some of the other examples that I've shown you to date, right? Up to this point. But still, just having that impression that it was made for me draws my attention. And here's what I love about this one. It's not really meant to stand alone. These couple of examples that I last showed you were more or less standalone, more so standalone, but this principle is meant to be combined. Check it out. Remember these 3 that I showed you earlier? Do you see how it's you? You see how that, like, it is natural. It fits really well. And that's why I say look for an opportunity to add the word genuinely, because it's something that if you do the other parts right, it fits really well. Okay, it's just something that you should just add and do. If it, you know, so for some examples of how it combines, right? Order today to receive for Mother's Day versus an idea for you. So you is there. What else is there? Well, idea. Okay, so there's some perceived utility, like he's thinking of me, and then mystery. All 3 of those elements combined. More opens. Okay, another one. Devotionals for the Christmas season, okay, versus a Christmas gift for you, Kevin. So we even added the name, okay, right? So you've got you, Kevin, And then you've got utility on both, but you've got a little bit more mystery and a little bit more utility on the right. That's why it had more opens. Are you seeing how this is coming together, right? Time is running out to get your free CD versus our gift to thank you, a free CD. Just by, again, naturally adding the word you and then reframing the CD for what it really is. It's a gift, it's free. You know, we say free, but it's a gift, right? Result was significantly more opens. Does this make sense? So I'll end this section on you by saying it's not, the word you isn't, it's not about the word you specifically. It's about making it feel, again, like it was written specifically to them. For example, here, look at the top, version A. Do you want a free, and then there was an actual content offer. So let's just say, do you want a free breast cancer guide? Or, you know, I mean, something like that. Instead, what version B did is, John, get your complimentary breast cancer guide. Our brains are a little bit more biased towards our names than they are you. Therefore, it was able to get more opens. But the principle is the same. They both made it feel like it was a little bit, they both, to some extent, made it feel like it was for me, but the one on the bottom, version B, did a far greater job. So you'll notice that even within these levers, there are degrees, okay? And you don't need the best degree in order to make a difference. You just need to work your way there. So if you're gonna activate this, you need to imply that the email was specifically made for them, okay? That's what the subject line does, is it stops them long enough to say, you know what, maybe this was actually made for me. And then they look at all the other parts, okay, like the sender line and the other things to see if it's true, okay? Now let's go in the 4 or the 5th, we're almost done. Recency. Our brains are biased towards things that are happening now. It's true, you know? And the thing is that you can use that genuinely and honestly, okay? This isn't manipulation. You can use that genuinely. Like if something is happening tomorrow, why wouldn't you point out that it's happening tomorrow if it's going to help give it a chance of being seen? Does that make sense, right? So that's what this is. Okay, the key to activating recency is to use time relevance indicators and words. For example, days of the week, yesterday, today, tonight, tomorrow, time, today, salutations. Those are the things that you want to use. Okay, so let me show you some examples. It will be giving to you versus coming tomorrow. Now they both have a little bit of mystery, all right? Version B outperformed version A. And the thing is, again, it's not that version A is an amazing, or, you know, it's not that version B, sorry, is just amazing headline or subject line. It's that, you know, it's just a little bit more, it seems more relevant to the human brain than version A. I mean, there's something that feels a little bit off about version A, even though it's using some of those principles, right? Okay, so does that make sense? Let's do another one. One thing remains. So that's a little bit too much mystery there, okay, versus this Sunday. Still some mystery, but again, it's mystery combined with time recency, and it also feels a little bit more genuine. The result was about 6% more opens. Not massive, but when you're talking about really big email lists, that can make a huge difference. Another one, incredible milestones. Good morning. It's not that good morning is an amazing subject line. It's that, you know, it's just significantly more relevant than version A, which is just mystery, too much mystery. The degree of it is far beyond what would seem interesting, right? So 11%, people are like, it's too big of a jump. Make sense? And finally, did you eat too much last week versus what's special about today? Okay. Hey, you know, did you, so you got the thing of you eat too much last week. That's not bad. Okay. He's engaging them. He's asking them a question, but there's not as much perceived utility in that. And you say, what's special about today? So now you've got that mystery, but now you got that time recency, and people were just, at least 5 to 6% more people were drawn a little bit closer because of the recency. So if you're going to activate this, you need to find a genuine, honest way of adding like time indicated in, you know, time words, right? If it's today, tomorrow, this week, right? Those are the kind of words that people, when they see them, they're like, okay, you know, I just want to make sure that this isn't something I have to do or go to or whatever, right? Okay. Even people, the funny thing is that we live in such a deal society now where it's all about the deals and discounts and all of that. And of course, all the deals have deadlines in the for-profit world. Even our matches have deadlines. I think things like that is probably, it's caused us as humans to value that time recency just a little bit more than maybe we did 50 years ago. You know, our brains are very plastic and they're going to adapt quite quickly. So this is one of those things where we're taking advantage of understanding how times have changed and we're moving along with it. Here's the last one. Here's the fifth of the five: authenticity. And then I'll tell you the end of my story, right? My corgi story, right? Authenticity. I love this. So you got a time recency word on one just today versus don't wait another minute, right? Of course, you know which one's the winner. It's version A. Version B tanked, all right? Not just by like 5%, but by like 30%. And here's why. You know, version A feels like it potentially be more like a conversation, or, you know, like more like a real email from a real person, or, you know, it just doesn't really rub you the wrong way. But version B feels like ShamWow, man. It feels like Vince offer. It's like, but don't wait another minute. But wait, there's more, right? Here's another one. You still have time to double your dollars versus, okay, this is a religious example. Nothing is impossible for God. One, again, feels, 77%, that's a lot, right? One feels genuine, the other one feels like ShamWow. Okay, here's another one. Time is running out versus TikTok. Again, it's not that version A is an amazing subject line. It's that version B feels like ShamWow. Okay, I mean, you see, like another one. Are you with us? Only a few hours remain. It is important that we remember, again, is version B the best subject line you ever read? No, but it certainly about beat ShamWow, okay? Because again, people are like, those are like not fighting words, but it's like, you know, it's like delete, you know what I mean? Like I don't know what it is about that tone, but we as like humans have like really grown to hate it. And we look for it. And if we even sense it, like we get an ugly taste in our feeling, even if it wasn't meant to come off that way. And that's why learning this is important, is that it's not that you are that person. It's that, you know, sometimes we don't realize that we come off that way. Me too. I'm guilty of this a lot. That's why I have to constantly be reading, constantly be studying, constantly be re-examining to make sure that I'm coming off in a way that gives me a greatest chance of being heard and gives them me a greatest chance of helping somebody, right? So if you want to activate this, I just say read it out loud, you know, and see if you can make it feel like ShamWow. If it feels a little bit like ShamWow or Vince Offer, you might want to reconsider it, okay? You know, let me give you a solid example and wrap it up for you. We can get to your questions, and then I'll tell you a story ends. You know who were really good at this? You know, these guys were super good at it. It was those who were in charge of the Obama re-election campaign in 2012. You know, I don't know whether you love them, hate them, agree with them, disagree with them. That doesn't matter. These guys were amazing at that. Did you get an email from Obama? I remember seeing some. I was like, eh? Barack Obama's emailing me? No, that's gotta be spam, but I had to look at it, right? Let me tell you, here are all the different types of subject lines that they were in, okay? And if you're looking for, you know, there's whole case studies. When I was with Marketing Sherpa, we actually, they were like a keynote at one of the summits, right? Back, I think it was 2013 or something after the re-election, right? So some of my personal favorites, my top one is Hey. And the funny thing about this one is that this one actually outperformed some other subject lines to the tune of a 12% increase in donation revenue. It literally translated all the way down the funnel, or all the way up the funnel, depending on how much you know about us and from us. But you know what I'm saying? Like, wow. And I was thinking, man, what would it be like if Bill Clinton used this one, right? I'm thinking, man, that could be interesting, right? This makes me smile, right? You know, Hey Again, they were doing so well, they did Hey Again, and then finally they start translating in different languages. But the point is that this team, they were masters at this approach, and they documented all of their wins. Those case studies are out there if you want to get in more detail, if you are curious about this kind of approach. these guys are really good. Okay. So if I were to create this into some sort of heuristic or formula, don't worry, you don't actually need to know math to know this. All this is simply saying to you is that, utility and mystery are among the most important factors. That's why there's a 3. Recency seems to hold a little bit of weight too. Not as much weight as these other ones, but yeah, you is kind of like an add-on. Like it's something that you want to make sure is there if you can genuinely do it. And then of course you want to guard against that like unauthenticity or, however you say it, right? If you were to translate this into a step-by-step thing, it would be something like this. You're gonna write out the subject line, okay? And the first thing you're gonna think about is benefiting them, right? And then after you kind of figure out, well, again, getting them that dopamine hit, giving them that like quick win, try and take a little bit of the topic out, but not completely. You don't want so big of a mystery that doesn't make sense. Okay, you want something that they can kind of wrap their mind a little bit around and explore the possibilities in. Then, if you can, try to add a recency cue. Again, if it's honest, a made-for-you cue, that shouldn't be too difficult. And then finally, read it out loud. Does it sound like ShamWow? If it does, try again, right? Real quick, the question is how in the world was I able to get Baxter out without giving him treats? The vet was like, he's getting a little big, John, you might want to do something about that. Well, I figured it out. You want to know how I did it? I literally would go up to a wall. I would go up to a wall and I'd be like, I would knock on the wall and all of a sudden he'd start barking and he'd run to the front door. Now what just happened there? What just happened? Well, he loves watching what's going on outside. And he loves it when people come to the door and it's like whenever he hears certain sounds, he's got this expectation, this impression that there's something interesting that's going to be out there. So what I would do is I'd knock on the thing, he'd go all the way to the front door and I just get the leash on and let's go check out and see what's outside. And guess what? He got potty. I didn't have to give him a treat. I'm not saying you need to go lie to your donors, okay? Sorry, but another thing that I do now, I'm not a one-trick pony. I've got 2 tricks now. I actually say, is that a cat? Is there a cat out there? Right? Because again, he's got the impression that there's something cool that's going to happen out there. Therefore, he wants to go. Whereas before, he's whining, but he's too lazy to go out there. Okay? Let me just tell you something. The brain is lazy. I'm not joking. The brain is lazy. Okay? And unless you convince it, and you appeal to its biases to let it, it's not going to want to take that extra effort to give your email a chance. But if you were to align yourself with these 5 different things, okay, if you were aligning yourself with these 5 different things, you don't have to use all of them. You can use some of them to give somebody the impression that something cool, interesting, something that they're interested in, something that their brain wants to see is there behind the curtain. You are more likely to give your message a chance. And you know what? Here's what I say. I say to somebody, give me a fair chance to be heard. And if you still don't want to donate, or you still don't want to help, or if you still don't want to X, I'm cool with that, right? I'm not here to force somebody, but at least give me a fair chance, right? At least give me a shot. I won't be long, right? I want you to have that fair chance too, okay? Oh, and by the way, sometimes that does mean finding the best topic angle because, as good as these subject lines are, if you can find the most killer topic angle, which in this example is Heartlight, and they are about helping families with really troubled teens and problems there, like, a topic-based angle will certainly still do the trick. It's just harder, okay? But now, guess what? You've got both tools in your tool belt, and you know how to use both of them. All right, thank you so much. Nathan, if you can come back on, queue us up some questions. I'll be happy to do it. I don't know, before we do that, let me just, while you're looking at the questions, let me just do this, guys. He told you about the summit. Listen, it's a lot of fun. I learn a lot while I'm there too. That's what I like the most. It's like I get a free ticket, right? I get to learn too. It's nothing that like I've all heard before. It's just stuff that I learn with too. Usually where you can learn more. And what you just experienced today is actually for real, very mini snippet as part of that workshop. So when you come, you're actually going to not only kind of be rehearsed on that, but you're going to learn how to use this in concert with all the other elements in the email envelope to give your email the very best chance of being opened, and you're going to be a little bit one step ahead of those in your group, so you can be the smart one at the table. All right, cool. Questions?
Thank you so much, John. As always, your webinars keep me fully entertained with all your jokes and weird references. And it looks like you got a shout out from Eric Wilbanks in here. He loved your Star Trek reference and the fact that you're drinking tea. So thank you.
It's Earl Grey, by the way. Tea Earl Grey hot. This is the captain's tea. I'm just saying, like, it's my favorite. And I'm going to make me another one when we're done.
I love it. We really have one question so far. So if you have more questions, something you've been thinking about as John's been talking, feel free to share it in the little chat window on the right side of your screen. We have about 9 minutes until 2 o'clock, which is when we have to shut down here. But if you don't have a question, but you do have a subject line for an upcoming email that maybe you're working on, or maybe you have an ongoing automated email, something like that, and you want to get some thoughts on, does this have mystery in it? Does this have recency in it? Feel free to send it in the chat as well. We can take a look at that too. But again, if you have questions, send them in, we'll answer them. John, the one question I have so far, Susan has come more of a commentary that I think would be a good discussion point. She says that the subject line you talked about, it says, "I can't even imagine, ... I believe it was the winner in the experiment, but the feedback was, that sounds like, it really sounds like it's screaming just spam. So what does the data say? And then how do you balance these elements of mystery without being spammy?
Well, what does the data say? Data says that the donors didn't think it was spam, right? My first response would be, I think what you're saying is genuine to you and to some folks, but remember, you are not necessarily your donor. You're not necessarily your list. That's why we need to test. And what I love about subject lines is it's actually the easiest test for you to run. You got MailChimp, you can do a subject line test. You've got Constant Contact, I'm pretty sure you can do a test there too. Like, you've got whatever you have, you can run a test. So my first thing to say to you is, don't just dismiss something like that because you think it's spam. Put it to the test. It's one of the easiest things that you can do. And you know what? All you have to do is test it one time or twice. And then, yeah. So now what I will say when it comes to mystery is you did see examples where the mystery went a little too far, right? And that happens, right? That's why we have all of the other principles as well. That one, which is I can't even imagine, was literally just mystery. It's like there wasn't even any utility in it. Any implied utility. It was more of like a curiosity play. But it was certainly a lot more enticing than the topic angle that they chose. So my advice to you is this. Number one, don't just send out an email without at least testing one subject line. It's the easiest thing that you can do. And you can continue to learn about your donors, your list as you're doing it. Second, don't just do mystery. Do mystery and utility. I'd rather you do utility than mystery. You know what I'm saying? But if you're worried about spammy, then actually imply some utility in there. I've just been lucky enough that this library that we have has enough examples where people actually don't even put that necessary utility in to kind of prove the point that mystery on its own can have some pull. So my thoughts, data says that the donors didn't think it was spam. Data says that Gmail didn't think it was spam. So your brain is prematurely dismissing it. And I hope this webinar is helping you to kind of open up a little bit. Run a test every time. Don't just do mystery, please. Add a little bit of utility or something else, right? It's just going to be better for you. Let your donors tell you what's the right answer. I think that's going to be best for you in the long run. Does this help?
Cool. I think that's helpful, John. I think you covered most of that. There's a couple other questions that came in related that I think you've touched on. The one specifically, though, from someone from Family Life Canada is wondering, do certain words, are there particular words that do trip a spam filter? Or if you're using Gmail, put something into the promotions tab. Anything you know of in that space?
Nathan, I actually, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, from what you're seeing recently.
Yeah, so I know that there are lists. Some of the the different spam filters that are out there do publish lists of words that have a particular spam score. I don't think everybody publishes them, but it gives you an idea. Most of them tend to be around things that sound like spam maybe you would have gotten 10 years ago, that's either like, selling like weird medical products or things like that find their way into your inbox because your email got sold to all sorts of weird providers. But for the most part, things that you would naturally be writing that sound human are very rarely going to trip a spam filter. You can go out and look for those lists. But again, if you're trying to craft subject lines that sound like a human, a real conversation, that's what these filters are trained to look for, is what looks real and what looks like spam. So if you're being like a human.
Yeah. And that's really good piece of advice too. And that's why I wanted you to answer, Nathan, because like, it's just kind of like the SEO person asking, well, what specific things are making you rank lower? Google is constantly changing their algorithm. ESPs and all of that are constantly changing their algorithm. You can dwell on the words that cause spam, but I think you're missing the point. Like, I know I say look for ways to add the word you, but what did I actually say at the end of that section? Adding the word you is not as important as making it feel like it was made for them, right? Adding the word you is just a shortcut for your brain. So Nathan's advice is spot on. You can go and find a list or two, but don't let that limit you, because I've seen the word free. People say free trips it, but I've also seen the word free really outperform and not trip it. Start by just being human. And go find a list. If you find a list that you think is interesting, it's got some good data behind it, let us know. And we can always put it to the test. And who knows, Nathan, maybe by the time we have the workshop, maybe we have Justin run a little analysis of all the different email campaigns that we've done, and we bring that piece of data to the workshop. I think that would be a wonderful thing.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Have access to. So hope that helps.
Yeah, we'll see if we can keep exploring, because it's a good point. Let's see, lots of questions coming in. This is really great. Let's go to a little subject line optimization here before we get to another question. Let's see, who sent this one in? This was Becky. Becky sent in 3 different subject line examples. So John, I know you can't see these, but I'll try to read them to you here clearly. So version A says, how independent are you? Question mark. Version B says, independence means what? ... Version C says, you make independence happen. Now, I don't know the organization. I don't know the context. I don't know the specific audience, but maybe that's a good thing. What things kind of come to mind as you hear those? Do any stand out as being good or particularly bad or need improvement?
What's the second one? It was how independent are you? The second one was
independence means what? ...
Means what? And then the third one was
you make independence happen.
Okay. Here's what I'm going to say to you. Let's just analyze this really quick. Okay. How independent are you? I get the impression that I'm going to get a survey. So there's some work. There's a, and even though you've got the word you in there, I mean, it's a good first step. Remember, it's not the most powerful. It's one of the least powerful levers that you can pull on, right? I get the impression here that this is some kind of a survey, and I don't perceive utility. Okay. That's maybe some, right? So that's the first thing. The second, independence means what? That's probably worse. I don't know. I would let the donors tell us. Maybe they don't perceive a difference between A and B. But again, it's more of like a curiosity, right? As that you're pulling on a little bit mystery, but I don't, there's no other levers that you're pulling there. You make independence happen. I perceive perhaps some utility there, because maybe you're thanking me. Are you thanking me? Like, are you, am I about to be appreciated? Like, these are some of the questions that go into my mind. Plus you've got you, right? Okay, so now I feel like it's being addressed. It kind of reminds me of this Carrying Bridge subject line that says, you amaze me, Jeff, or you amaze me, John. Why do I amaze you? I feel like I'm about to get a compliment. I feel utility, right? So I would say of all 3 of these, this one has the most potential of going somewhere. So what if you did this? What if you said, you make independence happen, John? Right there, you're going to get even greater lift, right? Because now, okay, it feels like it's made for me. And this is, this is dynamic, right? This is, first name, right? Okay, but you make independence happen, John. You could take this a lot of different directions. You could be telling, you could be like thanking me and then asking me for another gift. You could be telling me like this one feels like it's got the most. I'm like, okay, how do I make independence happen? There's mystery, there's me, there's utility, right? And it doesn't sound like it's not completely ShamWow there. Because you add my name, I'm going to look at the sender line and I'm going to look at the preview text to verify that this is indeed going to be good for me. But if I were to optimize any one of them, I would pick the third one and I would add that. And it sounds like you could go a lot of directions. You can, but are you seeing how this has helped? Nathan, do you have any other thoughts about this? Does this analysis kind of help everybody get an idea of how I'm looking at these?
Yeah, I think that's super helpful. Even just, I mean, for me, it's always super helpful to see someone else, start to, dissect these things and see, okay, this is what I'm starting with. But it's so hard. Somebody said this in the comments earlier too, but it's so hard to take a look at your own subject lines or copy in isolation and remove yourself from it. So even if it's somebody or someone that isn't involved in email marketing at all, but might be someone who would receive your email even within your organization. Maybe it's good to have someone like that look at them even through this filter and say like, no, this actually, maybe this part really does sound spammy, or this sounds a lot more personal. So seeing you dissect this, I think is really helpful in just how to begin optimizing these different pieces. If you have listeners out there, if you have another subject line you want optimized like that, we can take a look at it too. We're going to roll through a couple more questions here. I know it's after 2 o'clock. If you need to go, that's fine. But we're going to try to answer as many questions as are here. So if your question's in here, we'll try to get to it. So you can stick around.
Cool.
Time. Let's see here. You touched on a lot of things, even just in that example, particularly about spam and all that type of stuff was kind of covered, and including the first name in the subject line instead of the word "you" can actually be more effective. Let's see. Tamara asked this question: do you have any recommendations for an email subject for a monthly newsletter? Are there rules that are different for newsletters?
Here's what I would say that I've learned about monthly newsletters. I remember I was running some tests even when I was with Marketing Sherpa, and we would have a research newsletter. I mean, Nathan, you're constantly running tests. You got to be careful in a newsletter about what you put there. Like if you lead with a specific article, that could either hurt you or help you, but it's highly risky. It's highly dangerous stuff, right? So I remember one time, I think Marketing Sherpa thing, they had an article about something about a farm and this and that and marketing, and it just completely tanked. And I'm just like, well, yeah, because who wants to learn about a farm? Like we don't ever stop to realize that first article that we chose is actually boring to the rest of the people. But you could say something like 5. I mean, I think Nathan, this was actually in the library from Brady or somebody. It was like 5 top things, the 5 coolest things that I've seen last week. Or I selected these. Here are 5 awesome articles I really think you should read, John. You know what I mean? So I would change it up a little bit, but just my advice to you on newsletters is unless you're really, 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 really confident that one particular article is going to really grab people, I would be careful about using a specific article or subject matter that's actually in the newsletter to lead with. Just be careful. You're going to want to test your way into it with a smaller subset. Otherwise, you're going to be pretty safe using this method, which is going to be, here's the top. John, I selected these 5. I think these 5 articles are really relevant to you, John. Right? If you say something like that and you consistently at least deliver 2 or 3 that are relevant, they're going to look forward to that email, right? So that's what I would recommend when it comes to newsletter. Avoid highly, highly specific subject lines unless you were 100% confident, right? Or you're fairly sure, and imply that there's some curation, some personalized curation there. Like you didn't just pick 5 boring articles; they're the 5 most popular articles. They're something that other people like. You want to imply that they should like it because it's got to have a value proposition. Does that make sense? Imply utility. That's what I'm saying. Like it's appeal to their interest, either in what other people are thinking, or the fact that it's for them, etc.
Cool. That's good. Yeah, and that's exactly what I've seen, even just in the, when we're sending out an email with newsletters, or kind of, we call them just digest emails, a list of recent blogs and podcasts and all that stuff. That mystery element, not giving away, here's the specific articles so you can immediately opt out because you give yourself the chance with using mystery,
Right.
to explain the value of why this might actually be helpful and important for you. Cool. Let's see. Rebecca asked this question. This is a fun one. In fact, if you don't mind, John, I think I'll take this one just because I've tested it a bunch. The question from Rebecca is, do you have any thoughts on sending emails as a forwarded message? So you may have seen even just last week, I think, we'll just kind of put the whole playbook out there. John sent an email that was a resend of the original kind of webinar invitation email. So some of you may have seen that. It was really just saying to people that hadn't opened the first one, hey, I sent you this email about a week and a half ago. Did you get it? And it was truly John being genuine, wanting to check in and because we think that this content is important and helpful and want to make sure you have access to it. So there's kind of this balance of, you need to make sure that you're genuine.
Yes.
But using a forward type of tactic can easily come across as spam. So there was one test that we ran, we started trying this method out that actually put like FW : in the subject line and then repeated the subject line. And it actually, we saw, spam flags go way up, even though it was still an engaging email. But then we removed that and only used we had this new email, hey, just checking in, making sure you saw this. Then we included the full previous email copy below it, but we didn't use the forward characters in the subject line. So then it didn't get marked as spam nearly as much, and we actually saw an increase in both opens and clicks. And at one point, we saw a statistically confident increase in people replying. So we accomplished the goal of trying to be genuine, as well as people signing up for the webinar. So you kind of see the impact that just being genuine can have downstream, which is really, really cool. So in short, I would say it can be an effective method, but make sure you're coming across as genuine and not as some type of email spammer.
Yeah.
Anything you'd add to that, John?
No, you nailed it.
Cool. Alan, who's sitting next to me, is poking me saying, we got a bunch more questions. So I'm looking through here. Again, we'll try to get to as many of these as we can. If you need to jump off at any point, that's okay. But we'll try to we'll try to answer maybe 3 or 4 more. Does that sound good, John?
Yeah.
Cool. Let's see. If you send out, this is a question from Thomas. If you send out a weekly email, how often should you make a direct donation ask? This is beyond subject lines, more just broader email fundraising.
I think every organization, I think they're scared of sending, it's like when it comes to year end, those who are only sending 1 or 2 emails in year end are scared to send 4. And yet we've got organizations that we know of and work with that send up to 12 in the month of December or more. Here's the thing. If you're sending if it's just a newsletter, right, and it's purely cultivation, if you've got a for real fundraising need and campaign that makes a lot of sense, I would start testing the frequency of that. Here's the thing. I don't have an answer for you. It's once every month, right? What I do know is that here's what I do know is that if you send a fundraising email within 2 weeks, 1 to 2 weeks of an actual cultivation that was purely cultivation, nothing other than making them feel good, important, valued, and engaged, you're more likely to get donations based on what we've seen and what we've recorded in the library than if you didn't. So you do need to pair them together. The question is how often, what's the frequency? Well, I think that's something you're going to have to test. Maybe I don't know if you found differently. This is the same in the for-profit sector. If you, at one point in your life, started getting a whole lot more emails from 1-800-Flowers, I don't think I directly had something to do with it, but I know who did. They were scared that they were sending too much. There were some tests run where more was sent, and guess what? They made more money. And it didn't kill their. So my point is that but what was specific for them wasn't, part of that too is, here's one, let me cite one statistic for you. I forget who it was. It's in the year-end course. Somebody was going around saying, well, we've got data that says the more emails you send, mean less more fundraising emails you send, like in December or whatever, means less money. Well, yeah, if they all suck, right? That's the truth. I hate getting a lot of emails that are all about the company and the organization and not about me making a difference through them. So I even if they've got some people are like, well, John, my data says, well, look at your emails too before you go and say that. Are they really genuinely trying to really involve them, give them a chance to make an impact? Is it focused on them? I'm always going to challenge the number question until you got all that other stuff right. That's my answer. Nathan, thoughts?
I love it. And I love that you're not pulling any punches today too. This is great.
Sorry, I'm just having fun. I had my tea. I'm caffeined up. So
the tea is kicking in. Let's see. We've got 4 more questions here. I think we can buzz through most of these too. Let's see. What about emojis in the subject line? Should you use those? Do those matter? Seen any data on it?
I think we've seen it go both ways, right? I think we've actually seen a gain on that, right?
I believe we have. I think it was
pretty sure we've got at least one in the library. I think it was recent where it was used. It's just not enough data for me to say you definitely need to do it or you don't need to do it or here's how you do it. Yeah. I wish I had more of that, but I think in the for-profit sector, it's been used successfully. I've seen like 1 or 2 out there, and I think we've got at least 1 in our database. That's the thing, I don't have enough data. And the one thing that I would caution you about that is that when you got an emoji in a subject line, you lose, the one thing that you're losing is that one-to-one feeling. So if you got a fundraising email and you put a emoji subject line, unless that personality is like that kind of person that's like always emojiing every sentence, like it might not come off as genuine. So I don't have enough data to say, here's kind of the principles of how to do it, but I do know that it's gone both ways. So experiment. My advice though is experiment within the realms of using it genuinely, authentically, something to enhance the emotion, personality, and connection, not to just scream and get their attention. Because there's some really dumb emails out there with emojis, and I wish I had some to show you. So, but I'm not going to say don't do it because I've seen some people pull it off successfully.
Cool. I think I promised someone at a workshop we would try to put that to the test. So I need to. I know there's got to be at least 1, but it was recent and it's just 1 or 2. Like yeah. And then the for-profit, same thing. I just don't have enough. Yeah. So stay tuned. If we test more of that, we'll keep you posted. Let's see. Susan is asking a question. We have a gala coming up. Want to increase ticket sales. Do you have any ideas? Susan, I would say shoot me an email directly, nathan@nextafter.com. We can talk about that because that could be a whole 2-hour webinar also. So we'll get into that over an email. We can talk about that a little bit. Let's see. Brian is asking, at what point is a subject line too long? Is there a maximum character limit?
Well, what is the email service? The ESP has probably got their own rules, and I don't know. But in terms of like, I've seen really, really long subject lines trash small ones all the time. I see small ones trash large ones. My point is I don't think the length. Even in mobile. One thing that again, I don't think it's the length is the big factor here. I think what you position at what part of the subject line. For example, there's a principle that I used to teach called point first and point last. I think it's still valuable, right? And it still applies. Point first would be, if you're going to imply utility and you've got a long subject line, you're more likely to get more people to respond if you imply it earlier on than later on. But having it there versus not having it there at all, well, the longer subject line is usually going to outperform to some extent the smaller one. Because again, you saw some of those, right? Too much mystery, not enough utility, implication, and then a long one, but then the utility is clear, utility is going to win. That's my experience. So focus on point first, on utility, not necessarily on the length. There are some people that will say, yes, it's certainly a factor, but that's when they're probably isolating it. I've just seen so many, it's hard to, it's hard to convince people to run an experiment where the only thing that they're trying to test is the length. You know what I mean? And you're not adding any equal utility and this and that. But I know enough to say that, it's more a factor of where you position the utility when they see it. So it's, again, I wouldn't focus on that first, but at least you know how to manipulate it. And that's how I do it. If I'm gonna add a long one, point first, have it in front, and see how it renders out. And, but people do read them. It's not just all short for mobile and all long for desktop.
Great. Yeah, that's a good reference point, John. Thank you. That's super helpful. Last question that we have time for, I believe the last question in this list, unless I've missed one. If so, again, email me, nathan@nextafter.com, and we can chat. But let's see, this last question is from Walker. We've touched on this a couple of times, but kind of indirectly. So let's address it head on. What are your thoughts on including the recipient's name, first name, I assume, in the subject line?
Yeah, you want to, if it sounds genuine, don't just be like, throw it in there randomly. Because people, it's funny, I've learned is that, so like I'm finding ways to make myself like throw up because of my brain, like what it can do. And what's funny is my therapist would say, John, what's causing you symptoms like now, so we can figure out how to make me sick so I can get better, right? And I said, I noticed that when I'm talking with people and looking at their face and then trying to tell them something and then trying to do this, like I start feeling stuff. She's like, oh, and then she explained it to me. Well, in your brain, there are functions designed to recognize facial expressions and all of that. And Ariely and all of them did studies on this, right? You know what I mean? Stuff like that. Like there are shortcuts and pathways designed to kind of sort through all of that. And it's all working. And then you got this other stuff, and that's why you're getting sick. Well, what does this have to do with subject lines? Well, I believe the same thing. There are pathways and there are things that the brain does to figure out if their name is being used genuinely or naturally or not, right? So it's not about necessarily adding the name, it's about adding it within the proper context, because that's kind of how our brains work. So if you find a way to add it, you're probably more likely to get some sort of a lift than not. But if you're gonna test that, you gotta be fair. Don't add it here, but then have more utility on the left and all of this. You know what I'm saying? It's not necessarily the most important factor, but I would add their first name, right? But I would add it naturally and in the way that I create the right impression. Because if you try to add it naturally, you just try to paste it in there or whatever, I think the brain, just like the brain can sort through the faces and see and understand and all of that, like our brain has the same way. It can sort through how our name is used and how we're being communicated with pretty easily. And it can tell if it's garbage or fake or not. I don't know if that helps. It's a pretty long answer, but I thought it was interesting.
That's great. No, I'm sure that's more than the Walker bargained for in getting a response.
Yeah.
Great. I think that's all the questions. Again, if we missed something, if I'm not seeing it here in this list and you'd like to chat about it, so feel free to send me an email at nathan@nextafter.com, or you can email John directly also, assuming John's cool with me giving out his email address.
Yep.
John,
you see my cell phone with every email, so I still get calls from attendees, and I'll take it if I can take it. Like I'll for real like answer you,
Yeah, that's great. Well, thank you everyone who has stuck around, especially for this Q&A time and this little live optimization time. You all are the true heroes. So thanks for sticking around for an extra 20 minutes.
Hey, was that genuine?
Absolutely.
I know. Yeah. I felt a little ShamWow there. Sorry.
Sorry, I'm not trying to come across as inauthentic.
No,
all right.
You're good.
So especially everyone who's stuck around here, if you want to dive deeper, because we can have the same level of conversation about, email design, email copywriting, the whole envelope. So the preview text, the subject line, the sender name, the landing pages, all the works. We can have this whole conversation much more in depth at the workshop before NEO Summit. So feel free to check that out, niosummit.com. But that's really all we've got for today. John, any parting words?
No, brain is a pretty complicated thing. Line up with it. Don't fight it. It's lazy. Work with it. So
perfect. Well, thank you again so much, John, and then for all of you who have listened today. We'll see you next month on the next webinar, if not before then. So take care. Have a great rest of your afternoon.
Everybody.